everybody, welcome to my homestead and welcome to my channel. My name is Jared. In this video, I want to talk about this thing about the church supporting a gay marriage bill. I know that it's troubled some people. I got a Facebook message from Dawn Trevisnut. I think that's how it's pronounced, it Trevisnut. She says, "What's up with the Pope and others meeting this week on Mount Sinai to create a new 10 Commandments? Something about climate change? LDS Church accepting law of the land and recognizing gay marriage. Lots of crazy happening." And so I may do another video later about this, the green 10 Commandments, but I think suffice to say, it's just a sacrilegious attempt to gain support, I guess, for cutting emissions or doing things to fight against climate change, and it's just one of these stunts, one of these things to get attention, essentially. And it was done in a sacrilegious way. But anyway, that'll be for another video. I may or may not do it. We'll see. But as far as the church supporting same-sex marriage, or at least the law, whatever, let's get into that. So there's all these different articles that are coming out with headlines like this. This is from Salt Lake Tribune, of course. In a stunning move, LDS Church comes out for bill that recognizes same-sex marriage. Okay, on Fox News, it's basically the same thing. LDS Church comes out in support of federal law protecting same-sex marriage. The Guardian, Mormon Church voices support for Senate bill to protect gay marriage. So when you first see those headlines, it's kind of stunning. It's like, what? What just happened? And it can cause shock and confusion and dismay. But I want to explore what's really going on here. There's a lot to this, actually. So here's like a bunch more. It's just like it's hitting the news like everywhere. Everyone's talking about it, about the church supporting this bill. Okay. From what I could see, the only news outlet that had an appropriate title that really reflects the situation is Fox News 13. This is the local news in Utah. LDS Church says it supports compromise federal same-sex marriage bill. Compromise. Not come out in support of protecting same-sex marriage. No. Compromise. Okay, so let's look at this Washington Post article. A few of the things that I highlighted here. This is also a pretty good title. The LDS Church support for the LGBTQ marriage bill isn't shocking. And when you read the article, it explains why. From the 1990s through the Supreme Court's 2015 Obergefell decision legalizing LGBTQ marriage across America, Latter-day Saints were at the forefront of the fight to maintain the traditional definition of marriage as between man and woman. So, yeah, let's not forget that. There's been a lot that the church has done to fight against this. Okay, a lot. One thing that immediately comes to mind is the family, a proclamation to the world. Let's just review a couple things there. It says, "We further declare that God has commanded that the sacred powers of procreation are to be employed only between man and woman, lawfully wedded as husband and wife." Right? So it specifies only between man and woman. The family is ordained of God. Marriage between man and woman is essential to his eternal plan. Now, this is the real thing right here. And I think this is really the takeaway from all of this. This last part is a warning. It's a warning. They say, "We warn that individuals who violate covenants of chastity, who abuse spouse or offspring, or who fail to fulfill family responsibilities will one day stand accountable before God. Further, Now, this is really right here. Further, we warn that the disintegration of the family will bring upon individuals, communities, and nations the calamities foretold by ancient and modern prophets. We call upon responsible citizens and officers of government everywhere to promote these measures designed to maintain and strengthen the family as the fundamental unit of society. This was on issued or read by President Gordon B. Hinckley, September 23rd, 1995. Which, that's an interesting date, 1995. Because, let's see, 20 years later is when you have the Obergefell decision, the Supreme Court's Obergefell decision. 20 years. I don't think that's coincidence. Okay, that is just such a nice, even number. But the fact of the matter is that the world has been warned. Okay? A proclamation to the world. And specifically at the end, they talk about, or they issue the warning to responsible citizens and officers of government everywhere. And if I'm not mistaken, they actually sent this to various governments. I'd have to look into that, but I feel like I've heard that said before. If you can confirm that, put it in the comments below. But I think that this was actually sent to governments. So the world was warned in 1995 about this. Okay, so let's go back to the Washington Post article. The Mormon Church's organization, or the Mormon Church's organized opposition to legal same-sex marriage originated in the wake of its successful contribution to the campaign against the Equal Rights Amendment in the 1970s. Okay, so there's opposition back there and fighting against that. The apex of this battle came in 2008. You may remember this. I'll have to admit, this kind of slipped my memory, but it was brought back to me by reading this article. The apex of this battle came in 2008 when the church invested heavily in supporting California's Proposition 8, a proposed state constitutional amendment to ban LGBTQ unions. Though the church had already been involved in over a dozen state initiatives by then, the California episode was a dramatic escalation. Observers estimated that while Latter-day Saints account for only 2% of the state's population, they contributed about half of the $40 million spent on the campaign and 80 to 90% of the volunteer work. The faith's organizational skills helped secure the amendment's passage. They succeeded in California, right? Because I think the idea was that if California goes, the entire nation goes. But this was back in 2008. But Proposition 8 proved to be the church's final victory against LGBTQ marriage. The political winds shifted quickly, and by 2015, Obergefell legalized LGBTQ unions everywhere. By that point, Latter-day Saint leaders recognized the changing landscape and stopped supporting the legislative measures they had pushed for decades. So, you guys, think about it in this context, and I'm going to read some more things that will give further insight into this. The church did what it was inspired to do. Members of the church fought against this. They heeded the call from the family proclamation to promote measures designed to maintain and strengthen the family as the fundamental unit of society. They did it. Individuals did it. The church itself did it. Okay, they were politically active, did everything that they could do. But there's a warning, right? There is a warning. After all that you can do, what else can you do? At that point, it's the time for what it's time for what the warning was. Let's see. We warn that the disintegration of the family will bring upon individuals, communities, and nations the calamities foretold by ancient and modern prophets. Remember, I got this. I haven't done many videos for my other channel for a while because it's been too hard. But I have a disaster tracker. One of the most stunning things to me on this tracker is wildfires. Let's see. So these wildfires that are in this dark red, highlighted in dark red, these are the largest wildfires in that location's history. Okay, so this year, New Mexico had its largest wildfire of all time. Russia had its largest wildfires as a country last year, 2021, and also Colorado, California in 2020, as well as Colorado and Washington. 2018, British Columbia in Nevada. Okay, so things have gone crazy, and there's been more here just generally this century, but things have gone crazy as far as wildfires go. And actually, I'm going to bring this up again. Top 20 California wildfires. I love this thing that they have put together. This is California's top 20 largest California wildfires. 20. Okay, look how many come from. Well, let's do the ones that are after 2015. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. More than half of this list come after 2015. After that passed. Not to tie it directly to California, but California has been big as far as, the LGBTQ movement. But even more shocking to me, because 2015, that's kind of a long time frame. Just look at the last 2 years. 1, 2, 3. Oh, sorry, not last 2 years, last 3 years. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Almost half this list is just from the years 2020 and 2021. I would call these calamities, some of the calamities that are coming upon the world, probably related to this. Probably not just this issue, but just wickedness in general. Okay, let's go back to the article. Okay, let's see. The church's hierarchy recognized that changing political opinion, that changing public opinion extended to their own members. One recent study found that 58% of active saints now believe same-sex unions should be legal and accepted. If that's true, then I don't know, woe be unto us as a church. And interestingly, that's about half, right? 10 virgins, half. But that didn't mean the church began supporting LGBTQ marriage. Instead, it decided to cede the broader legal terrain to cement its control over those within its fold. Okay, this is really what's going on right here. It began pursuing 2 distinct yet closely related initiatives. First, a push to carve out legal exemptions to equality laws under the umbrella of quote-unquote religious liberty. And second, to reaffirm internal boundaries regarding their members' sexuality. In 2015, the church supported a bill heralded as the quote-unquote Utah Compromise that LDS leaders claimed protected LGBTQ individuals while safeguarding the rights of religious institutions. These rights included exempting institutions like BYU from implementing policies enforcing LGBTQ equality, as well as assuring the church's tax-exempt status. In the following years, the church also supported an LGBTQ inclusive... there's a typo. The church also supported an LGBTQ inclusive hate crimes law, as well as a ban on conversion therapy. Leading this new emphasis was President Oaks, who was elevated to the first presidency in 2018. He adopted the language of religious liberty, which conservative religious leaders had begun using to reaffirm the privileges of traditional and often powerful institutions. In this context, support for the Respect for Marriage Act is less surprising. The bill contains plenty of exemptions for religious groups, making it the type of moderate compromise that Oaks had prioritized. And the church's support has been a PR boon. Equality Utah, which has worked tirelessly for LGBTQ rights in the state, called the church's decision an attempt to, quote, discover common ground on laws that support the strengthening of all families, end quote. Well, I don't know so much about that as it is to safeguard the church from being forced to do things that go against our beliefs and our doctrine, right? That's really what this is all about. Now, here's the official church statement. Statement of the United States Congress Respect for Marriage Act. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints released the following statement on Tuesday, November 15th, 2022. The doctrine of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints related to marriage between a man and a woman is well known and will remain unchanged. We are grateful for the continuing efforts of those who work to ensure the Respect for Marriage Act includes appropriate religious freedom protections, while respecting the law, and preserving the rights of our LGBTQ brothers and sisters. We believe this approach is the way forward. As we work together to preserve the principles and practices of religious freedom together with the rights of LGBTQ individuals, much can be accomplished to heal relationships and foster greater understanding. All right, so that's what the church says. Now remember our articles of faith. I wanted to include 11, okay? We claim the privilege of worshiping Almighty God according to the dictates of our own conscience, and allow all men the same privilege, let them worship how, where, or what they may. And although the LGBTQ group, they're not a religion, it's not religious, you could say in a way it does bump into religious issues quite a bit, right? And they know what they're doing according to all different faith traditions out there. And okay, so let them do it. We believe in people's agency, and we believe in letting people govern their own lives and what they want to do. But the more important thing, so there's that, and then, sorry, not the more important thing, but number 12, we believe in being subject to kings, presidents, rulers, and magistrates, and obeying, honoring, and sustaining the law. This is something that not necessarily all other religions really hold as a value, per se. I'm not going to name groups, but I know of one group that's a lot of times confused with our church, and they are outright, against any man-made government and laws. Actually, there's a couple that are sometimes confused with us, that they kind of have that kind of stance where they don't necessarily hold this value of being subject to kings, presidents, rulers, magistrates, right? And oftentimes they actually do, but it's not one of their values. With us, it is, because law is order, and is our Heavenly Father is a God of order, right? And it's not that our laws are perfect, far from it, you know, but it's probably better for the stability of society and for civilization to obey the laws and uphold those laws. And where you can, you fight against laws that go against your doctrine. You fight against things that you don't agree with, but once it's accepted, you go with it, and you maintain your beliefs, and you keep living your religion. And at that point, you leave it up to God, just like the family proclamation. Further, we warn that the disintegration of the family will bring upon individuals, communities, and nations the calamities foretold by ancient and modern prophets. And I feel that's the proper way to look at it. You do what you can while there's time, to try and stop it, or whatever it is that you're trying to do. But once that fight is done, you let it go, you obey the law, and you leave the rest to the Lord. Now, I wanted to actually end this with reading from Official Declaration 1. This has to do with the manifesto that had to do with polygamy. Think about this in this way, okay? Imagine that what we're about to read is actually being applied to what's happening right now with the church in this bill and obeying the law, okay? Official Declaration 1. Official Declaration 1. The Bible and the Book of Mormon teach that monogamy is God's standard for marriage unless he declares otherwise. Following a revelation to Joseph Smith, the practice of plural marriage was instituted among church members in the early 1840s. From the 1860s to the 1880s, the United States government passed laws to make this religious practice illegal. These laws were eventually upheld by the U.S. Supreme Court. After receiving revelation, President Wilford Woodruff issued the following manifesto, which was accepted by the church as authoritative and binding on October 6, 1890. This led to the end of the practice of plural marriage in the church. So, if your family history goes back several generations in the church, most likely this affected some branch of your family, if not all. I've talked about how with my family, on my dad's side, it's all pioneer heritage. Not my mom's side, because she's from Portugal. My dad met her on his mission and they got married after his mission. So it's all Portuguese on that side, in Spanish. But on my dad's side, it's all pioneer, virtually every single branch. And it definitely affected my family. I'm about to show you how it affected my family. So I looked up just a few examples. Like, I have a number of different, these are direct, like these are all like grandfathers of mine, great grandfathers. Alexander Beckstead, he had 1, 2, 3 wives. I have another grandfather, Levi Jackman. He had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 wives. Some of these could be divorces, but I've done my genealogy. I've like done quite a bit, and so I know that a lot of these are actual marriages and not divorces. And if they're divorces, they should have like put it here as like there's like an option to say that there was a divorce. But James Chauncey Snow, 1, 2, 3, 4. And I don't know if you've had this experience, if you've done family history, but and if you have this like pioneer heritage, but as you were doing family history, I don't know about you, but I can't help but to feel a connection, not just with my own grandmother, my biological grandmother, but also the other wives, because they're part of this family, the family of Thomas Price Smith, and they're precious. And I have personally felt a love for them and view them as my grandmothers as well, even though I'm not directly from their line. Susanna Fish, Elizabeth Hunting. It's a very special thing. Um, yeah, the Lord's standard is like the base unit. The standard is one man, one wife. But when there's a need to grow a population, that's when it seems that that's when the Lord institutes it. And not that I'm trying to like promote it or get all excited about it or anything like that, but I just wouldn't be surprised if that happens in the millennium. The reason why is because there's going to be a huge depopulation event. We don't know like what percent of the world's population is going to be going away. Because they're classified as telestial, but it's probably going to be a pretty good percentage. And so I don't know. I guess we'll just have to see what actually happens. But um, it's something I think that can be very special when it's practiced appropriately and when you have people that are all loving and genuine and there's not jealousy, narcissism, things like that. You have like a nice family unit and really large family, which makes for really fun, I think, family events and family reunions. Anyway, Horace Ephraim Roberts, he was a 70. One, two, three. He had three. I came across this right here. This is from William Andrews Bills, another one of my grandfathers. Let me zoom in. He says here, this position I tried to fill to the best of my ability until July 8th, 1900, when a reorganization took place. The reason for the reorganization was that for about 3 years, my health was so poor that part of my life was despaired of. And at my own request, President Snow felt if I felt that I was unable to fill the position any longer, he was willing to give me an honorable release. During my sickness, President Snow gave me and my three living wives and one that had died a recommend to the house of the Lord for our further blessings, which we attend to. All as also for my father John and Elizabeth Bills. My wives mentioned namely are Emmeline Bexted Bills, Matilda and Petrenia Edmondson Bills, and Annie Eastwood Bills. And then this happened. Now, this is kind of famous. I guess it depends on how long you've been in the church, but there were people that actually went to jail when that law was passed for practicing polygamy. And right in the middle there, that's George Q. Cannon. He was a member of the first presidency. I don't know if he was at the time this picture was taken. I didn't research that. But ultimately, he became first counselor in the first presidency. And then you have these guys that are around. Very famous picture, and this isn't the only one. I actually found relatives of mine. These are not direct relatives. They're kind of like cousins of my ancestors. But, you have James Harvey Langford Jr. right here in a similar picture. This one, Thomas Jefferson. What's the full name? Whatever. Okay, I'll find out. Thomas Jefferson Jones. He's right there at the very top. Okay. Got Ira Allen. He's the one that looks like Bigfoot here on the right side. And that's probably George Q. Cannon. That looks like George Q. Cannon right there. It probably is. But, it's really sad. And, but that's what happened. So, going back to the manifesto, I'm just going to actually read. Well, I'll read right here. I'm going to read this whole thing. It's not really that long. Okay. So this is excerpts from 3 addresses by President Wilford Woodruff regarding the manifesto. The Lord will never permit me or any other man who stands as president of this church to lead you astray. It is not in the program. It is not in the mind of God. If I were to attempt that, the Lord would remove me out of my place, and so he will any other man who attempts to lead the children of men astray from the oracles of God and from their duty. And you guys, the reason why that's the case right now, especially, is because this is the last dispensation. This dispensation is not destined to fall into apostasy like previous ones have. This is the last dispensation leading up to the second coming, so it's not going to fall into apostasy. If you're worried about this news story about the church supporting this bill, don't. Again, the world has already been warned. The church and members in the church and other good people of different faiths have already fought this fight the best that they could, and won in the case of California and Proposition 8. Okay? We're getting to the very, very end. President Nelson has said that we are in the bottom of the ninth inning. Sister Nelson said, "Get on the ark," during the Alberta, British Columbia devotional. It's pretty close. I know that there's like different opinions about it, about how close we are. But if you're like me, and I know there are many of you that are like me, that think it is very, very, very close. So okay, have your victory, okay, that's great. Just don't force us to do things that goes against our beliefs, and it's all going to be done in a little bit anyway. Okay, moving on. Excuse me, that's the first excerpt. Here's another excerpt. It matters not who lives or who dies or who is called to lead this church. They have got to be led. They have got to lead it by the inspiration of Almighty God. If they do not do it that way, they cannot do it at all. I've had some revelations of late, and very important ones to me, and I will tell you that I'll tell you what the Lord has said to me. Let me bring to your minds of what is termed the manifesto. The Lord has told me to ask the Latter-day Saints a question, and he also told me that if they would listen to what I said to them and answer the question put to them by the Spirit and power of God, they would all answer alike, and they would all believe alike with regard to this matter. The question is this: which is the wisest course for the Latter-day Saints to pursue? Okay, this is where I would invite you to liken what he's saying here. He's talking about plural marriage here, but liken this to this whole thing with the bill. Okay? The question is this: which is the wisest course for the Latter-day Saints to pursue? To continue to attempt to practice plural marriage with the laws of the nation against it and the opposition of 60 millions of people, and at the cost of the confiscation and loss of all the temples and the stopping of all the ordinances therein, both for the living and the dead, and the imprisonment of the first presidency and 12 and the heads of the families in the church, right? Again, here it is right here. Here it is right here. This is the literal consequence of going against the law, right? This is the actual consequence of it, and the Lord will permit that to happen unless we follow His counsel and do what Wilford Woodruff is saying. So, excuse me. And the confiscation of personal property of the people, all of which of themselves would stop the practice, or after doing and suffering what we have through our adherence to this principle, to cease the practice and submit to the law, and through doing so leave the prophets, apostles, and fathers at home so they can instruct the people and attend to the duties of the church, and also leave the temples in the hands of the saints so that they can attend to the ordinances of the gospel, both for the living and the dead. The Lord showed me by vision and revelation exactly what would take place if we did not stop this practice. If we had not stopped it, you would you would have had no use for any of the men in this temple at Logan, for all the ordinances would have been stopped through the land of Zion. Confusion would reign throughout Israel, and many men would be made prisoners. This trouble would have come upon the whole church, and we should have been compelled to stop the practice. Now, the question is whether it should be stopped in this manner or in the way the Lord has manifested to us. See, it's not that the Lord it was being stopped. Okay, he could have, the Lord could have provided the way. He could have provided the way for it to continue. The Lord can do anything. But the Lord allows Satan, and he allows the people of this world to use their agency and make their moves. And that's what they did. Wickedness prevailed, and it's continuing to prevail in the world. And the Lord has a plan for that. He's like, okay, because this is essentially, this is like, wasn't it Alma and Amulek that were witnessing women and children being thrown into the fire? And Alma's like, no, I'm not going to stop it because this is going to go to their condemnation. Right? Hold on. I'm gonna look that up. Alma and Amulek. Women, children, fire. And this is such a horrible, horrible story. But let's see. And they were also, okay. And it came to pass, okay, this is like a situation. This is a similar situation. And it came to pass that after he had made an end of speaking unto the people, many of them did believe on his words, and began to repent and to search the scriptures. But the more part of them were desirous that they might destroy Alma and Amulek. Right? You could apply this to the more part of them were desirous to destroy the church at the time of polygamy, destroy the church right now as this whole LGBTQ thing is unfolding. For they were angry with Alma, or at any given time, the prophet, because of the plainness of his words unto Zeezrom. And they also said that Amulek had lied unto them, and had reviled against their law, and also against their lawyers and judges. And they were also angry with Alma and Amulek, and because they had testified so plainly against their wickedness, they sought to put them away privily. But it came to pass that they did not, but they took them and bound them with strong cords and took them before the chief judge of the land. Okay, let's skip down to the fire part. And it came to pass that, no, okay, we'll skip down. And it came to pass that he began to cry unto the people, saying, Behold, I am guilty, and these men are spotless before God. And he began to plead for them from that time forth, for they had reviled him, saying, Art thou also possessed with the devil? And they spit upon him and cast him out from among them, and also all those who believed in the words which had been spoken by Alma and Amulek. And they cast them out and sent men to cast stones at them. And they brought their wives and children together, and whosoever believed or had been taught to believe in the word of God, they caused that they should be cast into the fire. And they also brought forth their records, which contained the Holy Scriptures, and cast them into the fire also, that they might be burned and destroyed by fire. And it came to pass that they took Alma and Amulek and carried them forth to the place of martyrdom, that they might witness the destruction of those who were consumed by fire. And when Amulek saw the pains of the women and children who were consuming in the fire, he also was pained. And he said unto Alma, Who can witness this awful scene? Therefore, let us stretch forth our hands and exercise the power of God which is in us, and save them from the flames. So this would be similar to, they're going to stop our families. They're going to stop plural marriage. Why don't we just cause some miracle to happen so that the law doesn't go against us, or by some miraculous means we can continue doing plural marriage? Or right now, with the issue facing us right now, How about we just have some miracle stop these laws from coming to pass? Or, if they want to try and make us do gay marriage in the temple, then let's use a miracle. Why not do that? Why not do that? But Alma said unto him, the Spirit constraineth me that I must not stretch forth my hand. So it's the Spirit. The Spirit constraineth me. It's not just using our own good judgment. It's not, oh gosh, we're being pressured by the world, we better cave in. No. The Spirit. Okay? The Lord. The Spirit constraineth me that I must not stretch forth mine hand. For behold, the Lord receiveth them up unto himself in glory, and he doth suffer that they may do this thing, or that the people may do this thing unto them, according to the hardness of their hearts, that the judgments which he shall exercise upon them in his wrath may be just, and that the blood of the innocent may stand as a witness against them, yea, and cry mightily against them at the last day. Okay. I think that we need to understand this principle, that the wicked need to have their opportunity to fight, to rebel, to prevail. Allow them to do that if that's what they choose. And when they succeed at whatever it is that they're trying to achieve, it will stand as a witness against them, and their judgments will be just. But the work of the Lord is not going to be stopped. Okay. Let's go back to the manifesto. So, plural marriage was stopped, but that wasn't as essential or necessary as was doing the work for the dead and for the living. Right? Plural marriage is a more, like, when you think about it, it's a much, much, much more advanced principle. Because it requires, for it to be successful, to have a happy marriage, you really have to have the spirit of Zion, being of one heart and one mind, not being jealous of each other, even if jealousy wasn't an issue. Everyone knows that marriage by itself can be difficult because, just arguments pop up. There's things that happen, and then you have to work issues out, and you have to serve each other, and then add a few more wives, and it just kind of compounds the issue. So it really requires, for it to be happy, successful, peaceful, without contention, it takes a lot of spiritual strength, I think, and to be real disciples of Christ. But it's not like a saving. Well, I guess it is a saving ordinance for those women that, who are not able to find anybody that's worthy to take them to the temple. So in that case, it is to achieve exaltation. But the Lord, he has the way of working that out during the millennium. If there's women that are not able to find good men, that's not going to be withheld from them, and it's going to be taken care of in the millennium. So, okay, so let's continue. So, I forgot where. Okay, well, okay. Now the question is whether it should be stopped in this manner or in the way the Lord has manifested to us, and leave our prophets and apostles and fathers free men, and the temples in the hands of the people, so that the dead may be redeemed. A large number has already been delivered from the prison house in the spirit world by this people. And shall the work go on or stop? This is the question I lay before the Latter-day Saints. You have to judge for yourselves. I want you to answer it for yourselves. I shall not answer it, but I say unto you that is exactly the condition we as a people would have been in had we not taken the course we have. I saw exactly what would come to pass if there was not something done. I've had the Spirit upon me for a long time, but I want to say this. I should have let all the temples go out of our hands. I should have gone to prison myself, and let every other man go there, had not the God of heaven commanded me to do what I did do. And when the hour came that I was commanded to do that, it was all clear to me. I went before the Lord, and I wrote what the Lord told me to write. I leave this with you for you to contemplate and consider. The Lord is at work with us. And remember that, you guys. There's so many times like people they disassociate what's happening in the church from the Lord. So, for example, and I'm not trying to like cause an argument, but there's like people that really don't like the idea of polygamy, and they'll say, well, they were like wrong to do that, or they didn't fully understand the gospel, or whatever the case may be. And that's not the case. The Lord commanded it in the first place, and it was poor Joseph Smith's lot to figure out how to roll that out to the church, or after already having asked the saints to do so much and sacrifice so much, leave their homes, sacrifice to build the Kirtland Temple, suffer attacks and persecution, and then on top of that, it's like, okay, now my servant Joseph, I want you to introduce plural marriage. There you go. Have fun with that one. And a lot of people criticize him how it was secret at first. I think that he was being allowed to, use his own problem solving, because the Lord doesn't do everything for us. He does allow us to think and use judgment. And in that case, it was his job to figure out how to do that. And so he probably wanted to kind of like probably ease the church into it. You put yourself in that situation. What would you do? Anyway, it was the Lord that instituted it, and then it was the Lord that decided, no, we've gotten to this point. Okay, we'll take it away, and that's going to stand as a judgment against those that stopped it. Okay, he allowed them to rebel and assert their authority. So. Hopefully that makes sense. So when I see these stories, I'm not worried at all, because the truth of the matter is that the doctrine's not changing. The church has done everything possible to fight against this, and so have the members of the church and others. We've done what we needed to do. The world still insisted, and so that's going to stand as a judgment against them. And Judgment Day is coming very, very soon, in my opinion. Okay, that's going to be it for this one. So if you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe, like this video if you liked it, leave your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. Also, make sure to share this, and I'll talk to you guys later.